Picture this: a 5-year-old kid from Gary, Indiana, standing on stage in front of thousands of screaming fans, his voice cutting through the noise like pure magic. That kid would grow up to become the most famous entertainer on the planet. But here's what nobody tells you about Michael Jackson's rise to fame. It wasn't just talent that made him the king of pop. It was something much darker, much more complex, and absolutely mind-blowing. Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of how a little boy from the projects became a global phenomenon. We'll uncover the secrets behind the Jackson 5's meteoric rise, the shocking truth about Berry Gordy's master plan, and the exact moment Michael knew he had to break free and conquer the world solo. This isn't just another feel-good success story. This is the raw, unfiltered truth about sacrifice, genius, and the price of greatness. Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see the king of pop forever. Let me blow your mind with this fact. Michael Jackson was performing professionally before he could even tie his own shoes. We're talking about 1964, when most kids are playing with toys, but 5-year-old Michael was already commanding stages like he owned them. The Jackson family home at 2300 Jackson Street wasn't just any house. It was a music factory, disguised as a 2-bedroom home, crammed with 9 kids and 2 parents who had a vision that would shake the world. Joseph Jackson gets painted as the villain in most stories, but here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Without his iron fist and relentless drive, there would be no king of pop. Joe saw something in little Michael that even Michael didn't know existed yet. Those brutal rehearsals in the family living room weren't child abuse. They were the forging of a legend. Katherine Jackson provided the soul behind the machine, giving the boys their spiritual foundation and musical intuition. The family's financial struggles weren't just motivation, they were desperation fuel. When you're living paycheck to paycheck in industrial Gary, Indiana, music isn't just a dream, it's a lifeline. But here's where it gets crazy. Michael wasn't even the original lead singer. That was Jermaine. Michael started as the baby of the group, but when he opened his mouth to sing, something otherworldly came out. We're not talking about a cute kid voice. We're talking about pure, raw emotion that could make grown adults cry. The turning point came during a performance at Roosevelt High School. Michael, still barely tall enough to reach the microphone, delivered a version of James Brown's "I Got You" that left the entire auditorium in stunned silence. Then the explosion of applause came, and everyone in that room knew they had witnessed something historic. What made Michael special wasn't just his voice or dancing. It was his ability to connect with audiences on an emotional level that seemed impossible for someone so young. The family's breakthrough moment came when they caught the attention of Gladys Knight. She saw them perform at a benefit concert and immediately knew she was witnessing something extraordinary. Her recommendation would set in motion a chain of events that would change music history forever. By 1967, the Jackson 5 weren't just a local sensation. They were building a reputation that was spreading across the Midwest like wildfire. Here's where the story gets absolutely insane. Diana Ross gets all the credit for discovering the Jackson 5, but that's Hollywood marketing at its finest. The real discovery was made by Bobby Taylor during a performance at Chicago's Regal Theatre in 1968. But Berry Gordy knew that having Diana Ross as the discovery story would create more media buzz. This was just the beginning of the brilliant marketing machine that would propel the Jackson 5 to unprecedented heights. The audition at Motown's Hitsville, USA studio is the stuff of legend. 9-year-old Michael walks into a room with Berry Gordy and proceeds to perform like he's headlining Madison Square Garden. He didn't just sing, he commanded that room. Berry Gordy later said that watching Michael perform was like seeing a young James Brown, Jackie Wilson, and Smokey Robinson all rolled into one tiny package. But it was more than mimicry. Michael was creating something entirely new. When I Want You Back hit radio stations in October 1969, something shifted in the musical landscape. Michael's voice on that track was pure electricity. The success was immediate and overwhelming. It shot to #1, making the Jackson 5 the first group to have their debut single reach the top spot. But this was just the appetizer. ABC and The Love You Save followed. 3 consecutive #1 hits from a group fronted by a kid who wasn't even in middle school yet. What happened next was unprecedented in entertainment history. The Jackson 5 weren't just a musical act. They became a cultural phenomenon with their own cartoon series, serial, and merchandise empire. But behind all the commercial success was Michael's evolving artistry. When they performed I'll Be There, 12-year-old Michael showcased his ability to deliver heart-wrenching emotion. The song became their 4th #1 hit and established Michael as more than just a cute kid who could carry a tune. By 1972, it was becoming clear to everyone in the industry that Michael Jackson wasn't just the star of the Jackson 5. He was destined for something much bigger. The question wasn't whether he would eventually go solo, but when and how spectacular that transition would be. The foundation had been laid, the talent had been proven, and the world was ready for Michael Jackson to take the next step toward becoming the king of pop. Michael Jackson's solo career didn't begin with "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough." It started in 1972 when he was just 14, still performing with his brothers. Got to Be There wasn't just another song, it was a declaration of independence wrapped in a beautiful ballad. When that track hit the airwaves, it sent shockwaves through the industry. Here was this kid, barely a teenager, delivering a vocal performance that seasoned artists would kill for. Ben was the song that proved Michael wasn't just riding a wave of popularity, he was a legitimate artist. A song about a boy's friendship with a rat should have been ridiculous, but in Michael's hands it became something beautiful and profound. What people don't realize is that Michael was already writing songs during this period, studying the craft and developing his own voice as a composer. But then came the drama that would change everything. The Jackson 5's departure from Motown wasn't just a business decision, it was a family war. By 1975, tensions had reached a breaking point. The family wanted creative control and better financial terms. Motown wanted to keep their biggest stars locked in. Joseph Jackson made one of the boldest moves in music history when he decided to take his family away from the label that had made them superstars. The legal battles were vicious. Motown owned the name The Jackson 5, forcing the family to become The Jacksons at Epic Records. More devastating was losing Jermaine, who chose to stay with Motown. This split the family apart, but forced Michael to step up as the undisputed leader. The move to Epic represented complete creative rebirth. For the first time, they could write their own songs and choose their own producers. The Destiny album in 1978 proved the move was right. This wasn't just another Jackson family album. This was sophisticated, mature work showcasing their growth as songwriters and producers. Michael co-wrote several tracks and was heavily involved in production. Most importantly, it proved that Michael's artistic vision was commercially viable. The stage was perfectly set for his full emergence as a solo superstar. By 1978, Michael had a secret that was going to change everything. While still working with the Jacksons, he was quietly developing a vision for his solo career that was so ambitious it would redefine what it meant to be a pop star. The catalyst was his work on The Wiz, where he met Quincy Jones. Their creative chemistry was undeniable and revolutionary. The decision to work with Quincy on Off the Wall represented Michael's full commitment to establishing himself as an independent artist. The vision was breathtakingly ambitious, Michael didn't just want to make a good album. He wanted to create art that would stand the test of time, appeal to every demographic, and combine disco, pop, rock and soul into something entirely new. When Off the Wall hit stores on August 10, 1979, it rewrote the rules of what a pop album could do. The genius was its perfect balance of accessibility and sophistication. "Don't stop till you get enough," announced Michael's arrival as a creative force. He wrote it himself, showcasing sophisticated arrangement, layered vocals, and infectious rhythm. Rock With You became the soundtrack to a generation's dreams with its smooth groove and seductive vocals. The critical reception was unanimous. This was something special. But Michael was devastated by the Grammy snub, winning only one award despite massive success. This perceived slight became the fuel that would drive him to create the most successful album in music history. He set an impossible goal: create an album that would appeal to every demographic and establish him as the undisputed king of popular music. The preparation for Thriller was more intense than anything done before. Michael and Quincy listened to over 600 songs, narrowing them down to 9 tracks that would break every boundary. Billie Jean almost didn't make the album. Executives thought it was too dark. But Michael fought for it because he knew it represented a new dimension of his artistry. The stage was set for the most spectacular rise to global superstardom in entertainment history, March 25, 1983. Remember that date because it's when Michael Jackson claimed his throne as the king of pop in front of 47 million viewers during Motown 25. That performance of Billie Jean lasted less than 4 minutes, but when he glided backwards across that stage, defying gravity with the Moonwalk, the entire world stopped breathing. Even his own family couldn't believe what they were witnessing. But let's rewind to November 30th, 1982, when Thriller was first released. The initial reception was good, but not extraordinary. Radio stations weren't sure how to categorize it. MTV was reluctant to play videos by black artists. Michael was devastated. He'd poured his heart into what he believed was his masterpiece, and the world seemed indifferent. Little did anyone know this album was about to become a cultural tsunami. Billie Jean was the catalyst that transformed everything. When that song hit radio in January 1983, that bass line grabbed people and didn't let go. Michael's vocal performance was hypnotic and irresistible. The music video broke down MTV's barriers. Michael's artistry was so undeniable that they had no choice but to embrace it. When viewers saw him dancing on light-up sidewalk squares, wearing that iconic sequined glove, they knew they were witnessing history. Beat It proved Michael could conquer any musical territory. The Eddie Van Halen collaboration wasn't just adding a guitar solo, it was proving that great music transcends genres and races. The Thriller music video was the moment Michael became more than a musician. He became a filmmaker creating 14 minutes of art that combined music, dance, horror, and pure entertainment in ways never attempted before. The numbers were staggering. Thriller spent 37 weeks at number 1, produced 7 top 10 singles, won 8 Grammys in one night, and sold over 66 million copies worldwide. But the real proof came from his peers, Paul McCartney calling for collaboration, Quincy Jones declaring him the greatest entertainer ever, Diana Ross acknowledging her protege had surpassed all expectations. The impact went beyond commercial success. Michael was changing how people moved, dressed, and thought about entertainment. The red leather jacket, the sequined glove, the moonwalk. He wasn't just creating music, he was creating culture. The 1984 Grammys were his coronation, walking away with 8 awards as the industry officially acknowledged their new king. By 1984, the transformation was complete. Michael Jackson had evolved from the talented kid from the Jackson 5 to the King of Pop, a title earned through artistic brilliance, unprecedented commercial success, and an ability to connect with people that transcended every boundary. The legend was born, the crown was claimed, and the world would never be the same. The 1984 Victory Tour wasn't just a concert series, it was a victory lap around the planet that proved Michael Jackson had become the most powerful force in entertainment history. When tickets went on sale, the demand was so insane that it crashed phone systems across America. We're talking about 2 million people trying to buy tickets for the first show alone. This wasn't just popularity, this was mass hysteria on a scale never seen before in human history. But here's what made this tour revolutionary. Michael wasn't content to just perform his hits. He transformed each concert into a full theatrical experience with elaborate staging, cutting-edge technology, and choreography that pushed the boundaries of what live entertainment could be. When he performed the Moonwalk during Billie Jean, entire stadiums would erupt in screams so loud that they registered on seismic equipment. He wasn't just performing songs, he was creating religious experiences for 50,000 people at a time. The tour grossed over $75 million, making it the highest-grossing tour in history at that time. But more importantly, it established Michael as a global phenomenon who could sell out multiple nights in any city, in any country, to any audience. From London to Tokyo, from Sydney to São Paulo, the response was identical, complete and total adoration for the king of pop. He had transcended being an American artist to become a planetary icon. The behind-the-scenes stories from this tour are legendary. Michael's perfectionism extended to every detail. The lighting had to be exact, the sound had to be perfect, even the temperature of his dressing room had to be precisely controlled. He would rehearse for hours before each show, not because he didn't know the material, but because he understood that every single person in that audience deserved the best performance he could possibly give them. The cultural impact of the Victory Tour extended far beyond the concerts themselves. Michael's fashion choices during this period, the military-style jackets, the sequined gloves, the fedora hats, became global trends copied by millions of fans worldwide. He wasn't just performing music, he was dictating culture, style, and what it meant to be cool to an entire generation of young people around the world. Here's something that will shock you. After creating the best-selling album of all time, Michael Jackson was terrified. Thriller had set an impossible standard, and now the entire world was watching to see if he could do it again. The pressure to follow up the most successful album in history would have crushed most artists, but Michael Jackson wasn't most artists. He saw it as the ultimate creative challenge and threw himself into crafting what would become Bad with an obsession that bordered on madness. Working with Quincy Jones for the third time, Michael set an audacious goal. He wanted Bad to produce 10 hit singles. Not 5, not 7, 10. Industry executives thought he had lost his mind, but Michael understood something they didn't. He wasn't just making another album, he was creating a multimedia empire that would include groundbreaking music videos, revolutionary live performances, and cultural moments that would define the late 1980s. The recording process for Bad was unlike anything the music industry had ever seen. Michael spent over a year in the studio, crafting each song with microscopic attention to detail. He worked with legendary songwriters like Siedah Garrett on Man in the Mirror, creating anthems that weren't just catchy but carried deep social messages. This wasn't just entertainment. Michael was using his platform to address issues of self-reflection, social change, and personal transformation. Smooth Criminal became Michael's most cinematic achievement yet. That iconic lean defying gravity at a 45-degree angle wasn't just a cool dance move, it was engineering genius combined with artistic vision. Michael literally invented special shoes with hitches that could lock into the floor, allowing him to perform moves that seemed physically impossible. He wasn't just a performer anymore. He was an inventor, an innovator, a creator of experiences that had never existed before. The Bad World Tour that followed was the most ambitious live production ever attempted. Michael performed to over 4.4 million fans across 123 shows, generating over $125 million in revenue and cementing his status as the greatest live performer in history. Each show was a masterpiece of staging, choreography, and pure entertainment that left audiences emotionally exhausted from the sheer intensity of the experience. The King of Pop had not only maintained his crown, he had made it heavier, shinier, and more magnificent than ever before. By the late 1980s, Michael Jackson had transcended music to become something unprecedented in human culture, a figure so universally recognized that his influence extended into fashion, dance, philanthropy, and social consciousness on a global scale. His impact wasn't just measured in record sales or concert attendance anymore. It was measured in how profoundly he had changed what it meant to be a global citizen in the modern world. The moonwalk had become more than a dance move. It was a symbol of human achievement, of pushing beyond perceived limitations, of making the impossible look effortless. Kids in remote villages across Africa were practicing the moonwalk. Teenagers in communist countries were secretly watching bootleg videos of Michael's performances, and professional dancers were studying his techniques like sacred texts. He had created a universal language that transcended politics, geography, and cultural barriers. Michael's philanthropic efforts during this period were as groundbreaking as his music. He didn't just write checks. He created cultural moments that raised awareness and funds for causes worldwide. His recording of We Are the World, with dozens of other superstars, raised over $63 million for African famine relief. But more importantly, it showed how entertainment could be a force for global good. Michael understood that with great power came great responsibility, and he wielded his influence like a weapon against injustice and suffering. The fashion influence was equally revolutionary. Every outfit Michael wore became a trend copied by millions. The military jackets, the sequined gloves, the high-water pants, the loafers with white socks. These weren't just costume choices. They were cultural statements that defined an era. Fashion designers began creating entire collections inspired by Michael's aesthetic, and his influence on style extended far beyond music into the world of high fashion and street culture. But perhaps most importantly, Michael had become a bridge between different worlds. He was bringing together audiences that had never shared the same space before. Black and white, young and old, American and international, rich and poor. His concerts were like United Nations gatherings, where the only language that mattered was the universal language of music, dance, and pure joy. He had achieved something no entertainer before him had ever accomplished. He had united the world through the sheer force of his artistry. By the end of the 1980s, Michael Jackson's transformation was complete, not just as an artist, but as a cultural force that had fundamentally changed human civilization. He had proven that one person, with enough talent, determination, and vision, could literally change the world. The little boy from Gary, Indiana, had become more than the king of pop. He had become a planetary emperor whose kingdom was the hearts and minds of everyone who had ever heard his music, seen him dance, or been touched by his message of love and unity. The legend wasn't just born. It had grown into something immortal that would inspire generations long after the music stopped playing.